I do think, look, Slater reported it today. You and I talked about it yesterday. I think that the Denver Nuggets are a real possibility for Klay Thompson. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope opting out there. Klay's desire to compete for a championship. Klay is a West Coast guy. He always has been. He's a Western Conference guy. He always has been. I think that there is some real smoke there. I'm thinking about comments that have been made by so many, including Ramona Shelburne on our show yesterday when she said the Klay Thompson thing is going to happen quick. I'm going to take a big old L on taking the over on the Klay Thompson situation with regard to our summit. I said that we would do the show on July 8th and not know where Klay is. I said that about a week and a half ago, and now I could not be more confident that I was wrong with a capital W. I think Klay Thompson's situation is going to go quickly, and I think he is going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, and I would put the new line. The spread has moved to July 2nd, Mark. Will we know before Tuesday, July 2nd?
I'll take the under.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes me so alarmed about the reality that you just said. And I'm glad you ended the week and you ended the crossover on that note, because I am starting to feel that way, and I'm starting to feel a little bit pre-emotional, not emotional yet, but pre-emotional about the reality that seems to be coming down the pike, which is the Shams or the Woj, the announcement that Klay Thompson has agreed in principle on a blank year, blank $1 million deal with blank. And that's coming. And when that happens, that's really when, and the emotion, it's sports emotion, it's Warrior fan emotion.
Well, it's a big deal.
It's my job emotion.
It's a big deal.
It's not like the real deep emotion in your life, but it is a big deal. And it's going to be the end of an era, the big three, Klay as a Warrior. But I do think that we are down to the last final days of that.
Yeah, I really do too. First off, here's what Ramona Shelburne, ESPN, said to us about that situation yesterday.
There are only a couple teams with the cap space, right, to sign him to something like a little larger. And I think that cap space dries up pretty quick, right? There's only a couple teams that would fit there. And then everything else would be sort of a mid-level, right? So there's not much to decide except for where you want to go. I think the Warriors do have an interest in bringing him back. But, is that happening before they deal with the other 4 or 5 options that are out there? I don't see that. I think they have a few other things to try to get done that may or may not happen, right, before they deal with Klay. And let's see how long he waits.
She said it on our show, so I have no problem reiterating it. She said that after doing a radio show with Michael Thompson yesterday.
Any relation?
Just a bit.
Okay.
So you can hear it. You can feel it. Yes, there's a scenario where it turns a different way through all of the weeds. So I this is just a prediction. This is not a report, but I firmly believe, Dibs, Klay Thompson as a Warrior. We got 3 hours and 42 minutes left on the air together with that as a reality. And I wonder if that's really, even though it's one of those situations, and I bet we can all relate to it in life. We've seen this 1,000 times where there's something that's like, okay, this could happen, and you talk about it and you think about it. And then when it actually happens, you're like, no way. I can't believe that actually happened. Like, This is reality. Are all of you ready for that reality? Like, actually, not the thinking about it. Forget the second apron. Forget what the contract would look like, and even forget your very, very clear, for many of you, basketball opinion that it is time, and it makes sense. And I got hot 2 days ago about angry Klay, and that's not fun to watch, and it wasn't fun for him. And so all of those things, are you really honestly ready for the report to drop and the reality of a basketball game in October at Chase Center where Klay Thompson is not on the team?
Yeah.
Like, is that really set in? Because I firmly believe we're there.
Yes, and I'm getting more ready with each passing day. And Ramona's comment yesterday about, this happening quickly, and we know that the Warriors are not prioritizing Klay, and the reports have come out that there isn't even an offer on the table for Klay. So if the Klay Thompson free agency happens quickly and the Warriors don't have a contract offer on the table for Klay, I would follow A to B and lead to C, which tells me if it's going to happen quickly, it's going to happen somewhere else. So as we get into today and we get to 6 o'clock and then we get into tomorrow and then June 30th, which is when this all can start jumping off on Sunday, when free agency officially begins at 3 o'clock our time on June 30th, I get the sense that this is going to happen very quickly for Klay to be in Philly, in Orlando, in Denver, in some other city.
Really quick to add to this, on our YouTube chat, Ion has a super chat for $5 saying it feels like the last day of school, just to add on to the vibe you guys are talking about.
Feels like the last day of school. Well, but that would make it feel like...
Especially 8th grade, though, when your best friend's going to another school.
Okay, but the last day of school vibe, like, that's a party. That's throw all those papers that are at the bottom of your backpack, throw them in the air, put them all over the hallway floors, make some poor janitor clean them up. See, those
but there is some sadness, and I remember my 8th grade year because my family was moving, and I went to St. Rita's, rest in peace, in Fairfax, and I was moving to Petaluma. So my last day of 8th grade, it was mixed with, joy, you're leaving 8th grade, you're going to high school, but sadness because I was going to be the free agent going to a new team. So there was a feeling of like, I'm not going to see any of you anymore. Now, it was joy for them, sadness for me.
I get it. This is, I guess right now, and again, we are jumping ahead. If somebody's just turning on the radio, Klay is not signed anywhere else. He's not even allowed to. I just, there's too many conversations. There's too many things I've heard. I firmly believe that Klay Thompson's time as a Warrior is over. And so there's the wrapping your head around that reality. And then for me, there's also the wrapping your head around the way it went down. And I think that for me is the harder part. The harder part is not that the big three will not finish in Warrior uniforms. The harder part for me is that someone went away mad. Like, I definitely did not have that on my bingo card. I never considered the idea that there would be a parting of ways of one of the big three, and that member would walk away muttering to himself about the damn Warriors. I can't believe they acted the way they acted. Now, I think it is like that. I know it's like that. I know that it's like that right now. And I never would have thought in years past that it would get to that.
I'm surprised that it's gotten to that, but when you think about the cycle of events over the last even 2 years, if you want to go back to after the championship, where, Klay, I think, has not been feeling the love and respect from the fan base and even his teammates that he once did. The contract offer that he turned down back in October, reportedly, is way larger than the contract that he wasn't offered right now. He hunted his shot. He had a rough year. He had heart-to-heart meetings with his head coach, and then they wound up as a 10 seed. And all the while, many fans were starting to name-call him and making fun of him for having 0 field goals made in the team's final game of the season in the play-in tournament. So there were a lot of negative things that happened. You mentioned angry Klay. There's Klay Thompson. There is the contract he turned down, him hunting shots, and all the rest of it. And that leads us to a point now where free agency starts on Sunday at 3 o'clock, and he's probably going to have an offer elsewhere, and he's ready to turn the page. What
is your read? Because I think this is very significant today. Others don't. I know. We've all been chatting about it behind the scenes.
Yep.
But if you have not heard, today was supposed to be Chris Paul deadline day. The Warriors either needed to pick up the contract, and picking up the contract would signify that a trade was afoot. And if the Warriors don't have anything cooking, they would just waive him, and he would be gone. He would be a free agent. Well, what they've done is split the difference. They've delayed it. They've delayed it until Sunday. So now the new deadline is not today. The new deadline is Sunday, which, as you mentioned, is when free agency begins. All right, what's your read on that news?
My read is that they both are now getting an extension to continue to try to shop Chris Paul and his contract, because if you're Chris Paul, would you rather make $30 million or make 0 and go out there and try and get your own contract? Well, I'd rather make $30 million. So if it means I have to wait 2 more days to figure my own future out, yeah, we'll go ahead and kick that down the road. And if you're the Warriors, Would you rather trade Chris Paul's $30 million contract or get nothing for it? So I do think it's a win-win. Now, if you're Chris Paul, you're not going to push the deadline out till July 15th. And then at that point, they say, well, we're not picking it up. You're on your own. Now you're screwed. But a couple of days, go ahead, Mike Dunleavy. Keep shopping me. They're either close to something or they're not close to something and they're continuing to try to get something going.
Or that's my read. At least there's something possible.
Exactly.
And so my first comment was, hey, Dubs fans, we might have action. Emphasis on the might. But if they definitely, if everything was a dead end, I think you waive Chris Paul today. Now, there's more to put to that, though, because deadlines, right? So Chris Paul had a deadline of today, and Paul George has a deadline of tomorrow. Are you opting into your contract? Are you opting out? If he opts out, he's a free agent. The Warriors are off the table. He could probably go play for the Philly Sixers. If he opts in, that may mean that a trade is coming, because the reports are the two sides are not on the same page as far as an extension. Now, that could get figured out, yes. So staying with the Clippers, certainly a possibility as well. But here's what I would say. With all the reports that the Clippers want to call Paul George's bluff, we don't think you'll opt into your deal. Well, the deadline's tomorrow, and the Warriors' deadline was today. So now the Warriors went, okay, Clippers, if you think that you're going to call his bluff, we call your bluff that you're calling his bluff. We're going to make our deadline Sunday instead of today. So you and Paul George need to figure your stuff out first, not us. Because if there is a Paul George trade, Chris Paul would obviously be in it.
For the Warriors, he absolutely would be a part of it. And if you're the Clippers, you do have the ability to allow Paul George to opt in and then trade him at the trade deadline in February, where you might actually get more value at that point than you will now in June.
Or you could just get salary, because you can also, it's a non-guaranteed deal. And so if you were to execute a trade tomorrow, you can do whatever you want before Sunday, because that's the new deadline. We're sponsored by